My name is Clara Towson, and I'm a friend of the show.
Boom.
I am Francisca George, and I'm a friend of the show.
Perfect.
Hi, my name is Susan Leemans, and I'm a friend of the show.
Boom. Yeah.
My name is Zainab Sammaz, and I'm a friend of the show.
Boom.
Hey guys, my name is Sasha Vickery, and I'm a friend of the show.
Boom.
Hi, my name is Lloyd Harris, and I'm a friend of the show.
Perfect.
Hi, my name is Jan Faria, and I'm a friend of the show.
Boom.
Yes.
Take one. Well done.
Hi, my name is Jasmine Paulini, and I'm a friend of the show.
Wow, Jasmine, you got it in one time.
Ready? Play.
Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, whatever time it is in the world, wherever you are coming in from. How are you this morning as it is for you, Carson?
It is morning here, a little bit early, but excited to be on here. Doing well so far. How are you doing, John?
Not bad. Of course, it is US Open Eve. So that means we are here to look forward to the US Open, of course, on the women's side at WTA Weekly. In fact, just as a little aside, there are a few stories regarding our friends of the show. I will be here to talk about women's tennis, but Lloyd Harris has qualified. And Jaime Faria, I saw a post from him on Instagram, which said, not the way I wanted to be in the main draw, but happy to be in the main draw, if you know what I mean, because he's qualified as a lucky loser. Jasmine Paolini, of course, there's a story there in the fact that she made the Cincinnati final, and we'll be getting her campaign obviously underway as well in the next 24, 48 hours. I'm not sure if she's playing tomorrow or not. Off the top of your head, Carson, without checking the draw, what are the women's matches that emerged that you were like, I can't wait for that one?
That's a good question. I think a couple I'm looking forward to, Muhova versus Williams, Venus Williams, which I think that's happening tomorrow night.
Okay.
On Azarash. A couple others, Krejcikova and Mboko are playing first round. That one's really interesting to me. Yastremska and Pavlyuchenkova were playing. There was one other I was looking forward to when I saw the draw that I'm blinking on the top of my head right now.
Don't worry. Now I've got the draw up. I just wanted to get you, because there were three for me, I think, and I think we did previews for them, and you've mentioned at least two or maybe even all three. Oh yeah, the other one was Krejcikova. Ayala against Towson. But I think really that there were two, really, in a way that just stood out for me. Maybe that's not many, and there was only one on the men's side actually, really, that stood out. So I didn't find this draw, and I know it quite well now. I've been through it a few times. I've made predictions for loads of matches, as I put out a couple of videos to that end as well. There's not many. Even sometimes maybe there's not many standouts in the first round, but you go, I can't wait for Iga to run into Ostapenko in round 3 potentially, or Rybakina in round 4. It's probably the one thing maybe beyond the first round that caught my eye that I didn't know until yesterday. So this is 24 hours after the draw came out. Sabalenka's got Towson in round 4. And I think that's about as difficult as it gets for the world number one at that stage. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I think I agree with that statement. Towson's been playing pretty well all year long. Finally has been having some health and has went on some pretty nice runs. So it's a great season for her, but she's exactly the type of player that can do everything that Sabalenka can do. Not as consistently, not quite at the same level yet. I think she has time to get there, but she's got the power to give Aryna Sabalenka a little bit of discomfort in that match if it does reach that stage.
Yes, indeed. I'm just going to bring up their head-to-head. I know she beat her in the Middle East swing. It might be her only win, but they've only played twice, so it's one each. And their two results were one in Dubai, which Towson won, and one at the Australian Open, which was a few weeks before the Sabalenka won. Now, there is a tiny, tiny asterisk here in that obviously that Sabalenka in the Middle East, it's not really a thing. It often comes after a big push down under, and her results there were slightly skewed compared to the rest of the season. But there are other things surrounding Sabalenka, and we sort of begin with Arena at the moment. There are some other things at the moment that are just not red flags, not necessarily going to scupper her US Open chances, but certainly just things that are intriguing ahead of this. Now, she's just had by her standards, early loss. I think it was quarterfinals in Cincinnati that she lost to Rybakina. But that sort of, with the exception of the Middle East, she is getting to semifinals and finals across just about all the big tournaments, pretty much. In fact, even the 500s too. So there was just a slightly earlier, and it was also, a little bit, she was a bit flat, and it was a bit of a more comfortable win for Elena than you would imagine. Sometimes their matchup, funny enough, even though they're super competitive and super incredible players, there are quite a few comfortable straight sets wins in there for both players, funny enough. But of course, there's also this development with Gavin McMillan, who was on her team as a biomechanics coach. I think, from what I'm reading between the lines here, Carson, but I think he was let go, not necessarily in an acrimonious way, but just, we don't need you anymore, or we're looking to pursue something else. And the reason why I'm saying that is Coco gave a very interesting quote in her, but it was, again, between the lines. She said Gavin was available, so I thought I would, seize that moment. So that, to me, suggested, because I didn't know that there'd been that he'd left the team. So, so that's just another thing that we're all focused on the Coco element, but it's also Arena losing someone from her team. So, yeah, just a few little things. And obviously the loss at the semi-final stage at Wimbledon, maybe just, and the loss at the French Open final as well. And there's just a few incredibly painful losses this year that are really just all starting to add up. What do you think, Carson?
I'd love your thoughts on this statement, but this is a weird thing to say about the number one player in the world. But I think Arina Sabalenka has more pressure on her than any other player.
For sure.
The draw has.
I know what you mean.
And that's not fall out of the top 8 of the race and in danger of not qualifying for Riyadh. That's not in danger of falling out of the top 32 and not being seeded at Grand Slams. That's not the danger of falling out of the top 100. It's just competitive pressure of being the number one player in the world, and she hasn't won a major this year, though she's put herself in position essentially every time. Finals in Australia and at Roland Garros and semifinals of Wimbledon. But yeah, as you mentioned, there's just been a lack of wins in big matches this year. She's getting very deep in every tournament, as you mentioned. Cincinnati quarterfinals. Berlin, I think, was only a quarterfinals run.
True, yeah. Quarterfinal, I think. She lost to Von Drusova.
Yes, Von Drusova in that one. Other than those
there was also a quarterfinal in Rome as well, I think. But I mean,
yeah, you're right. Rome was a bit early as well. The Middle East swing, it is what it is for her. The Australian swing was absolutely fantastic. So she's typically played a little more tennis going into the Middle East swing than anyone else has. So I don't put too much weight into that. But yeah, there's just a lack of big titles so far this season. I wonder if she can turn it around here.
There is, this is also because it's Arina Sabalenka and she's world number one. And we know, especially because it's even more so, it's just this hard court season. And if we think back to a year ago, she's winning Cincinnati and you're thinking, okay, yeah, that's the platform that'll give her the spring. And she also won Cincinnati, beating Swiatek en route to the title. Pegula as well was a huge threat at the time. We all felt, I think, going into that title US Open. So those are great matches for her to win en route to the title. That says, I'm the number one, especially on this surface. And she went out and proved it for the rest of the season, and none more so than in New York a year ago, beating Pegula in straight sets in the final. And this year, I just going to say, is Madrid the last title that she won? So let's think. Rome, quarterfinal lost to Qin Zheng. I think at the time we just thought that she'd probably run out of steam. It's quite difficult, as even Rafa and Carlos and etc. can attune to and Iga too. It's pretty attritional to win all of those clay court tournaments. And when she was at the French Open, it was the absolute 100% arena that we'd expect. She lost the final there, obviously to Coco Gauff in very windy conditions. A really tough loss as well, because it felt like she was in control at various points of that match. I think she won the first set, for example. And it sort of felt even in that third set that it was Arena spraying the errors, being frustrated by Coco. Anyway, then, of course, we go into the grass court season. Berlin, not Bad Homburg. It was Berlin, wasn't it? The quarterfinal she had against Vondrousova, my bad. Another painful loss in the semi-final, third set, just one break in it. And then obviously down in the hard court swing, she pulls out of Canada, and you think, okay, yeah, that makes sense. Just because you've had a really attritional season, because you've won and got to the finals and semi-finals of so many tournaments, you've played so much tennis, pulling out of Canada makes sense. And we thought, okay, well, let's see how you got on in Cincinnati. And the results in Cincinnati, quarterfinal loss, and the nature of it to Rebecca. And it's like, okay, it's another thing. That aligned with another tiny, tiny jolt. We're not talking about earthquakes here, but with the departure from her team of Gavin McMillan. And it might just be a case of, look, I fixed everything that I need fixing, and I don't need a biomechanics coach anymore. It might be as simple as that. So we don't need to read too much into it. But that's just another thing. And then the draw, which I think for 3 rounds is okay. But from Towson onwards, it gets much more difficult. Rebecca is also in her half of the draw as well. So, yeah. But on the flip side, when Arena turns up, I think her peak it's a toss-up, and it's subjective, but it's between her and Iga, who has the absolute peak. And I've got Coco Gauff. I think that the dial has changed, Carson. I don't know what you think. But between these 3 players, who I think 6 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago, and maybe even 2 or 3 weeks ago, we were probably thinking, okay, it's these 3 and it's you choose. Just feels as though with that Cincinnati result, I guess aligned with the form that she showed on the grass as well, feels as though for me, Iga might have just eked ahead, and maybe Arena could be second or even third on your list. I don't know how you feel about those 3.
I think basing it off of history, I'd probably still lean Sabalenka as number 1, but she and Iga are, to me, a 1A, 1B. Like, there's not much separation in between those 2 right now. I would put Coco Gauff on 3rd if we were doing like a tier list.
Yep, sure.
She can win this title. She has won this title before. She could also go out in round 1, and I'm not sure I would be shocked necessarily. Like, there's just such variance to her results. And she's facing, I believe, Ayla Tomanovic in
that's an
round 1, which could be interesting. It could be a 6-1, 6-1 victory for Coco.
Yeah.
But Ayla has beaten some very strong opponents before. Like, she has the level to present a challenge. And, I mean, we talk about Coco just bringing in a mechanics coach. She also just let go of her coach.
Of course, yes.
So there's quite a bit of turnover in that team right now, which I think it depends on the player how much that affects you going into a Grand Slam. But I think from the outside looking in, the more stability you can have going into one of these tournaments, probably the better it is. Jannik, of course, made changes to his team right before Wimbledon and then goes out and wins the title. So stability in your team isn't a necessity to win a title, but Coco's team seems a little bit in flux right now. Her results have been a little bit in flux since winning Roland Garros. It's been hard for her to string victories together. So I feel like she's maybe a step behind those two right now, but I don't think there's anyone else that is ahead of her. And again, like picking in between these three players, like we're talking about small margins. It's not like a massive gulf in between any of them.
All right, we're going to look at this first section. So this is projected quarter finals. Maybe this is the most competitive section. I'll have to have a look at. I've looked at the super micro pictures, as in like every single match I've looked at in one way, shape, or form, and projected maybe second rounds, etc., and gone all the way to the finals. I did in one particular video. But this is the first time I'm looking at it in a quarter way, if you like. So we did a draw reaction show, and we did so many things, but actually, interestingly, one of the first things that you often see on social media is this is so-and-so's quarter and this is the projected quarter final. But what I want from you, of course, is not because obviously the projected quarterfinal here is Aryna Sabalenka against Jasmine Paolini in terms of seeding. But I want from you, Carson, is perhaps your thoughts on which of the two players most likely to meet in that quarterfinal. I'm showing it on the screen. I don't know if you can see it. Okay.
Yeah, I've got it build up as well.
Great. Just before I get your take on this quarter, a bit like I probably wouldn't quite go as far as first round with Coco, but I'm going to emphasize something that I said a couple of days ago on, I think, the draw reaction show. Which was framed around Paolini, but it could have been framed around pretty much any player on the WTA tour, or certainly the WTA top 20, 30 contenders, if you like, except Aryna Sabalenka and Iga Swiatek. I don't know if they're getting to the fourth round. I just don't know. Now, Jasmine Paolini is one of those. Jasmine Paolini could get to the semifinals. Jessica Pegula could make the semifinals. I use the semifinals just because I just think Aryna and Iga are a little bit ahead of the field in terms of just that bit of reliability that I might not watch many of Aryna or Iga's matches, and I won't tune in unless suddenly I see that they're into a third set or they're a set and a breakdown or something like that. Do you know what I mean? Whereas anyone else on the tour, Paolini, Rybakina, Towson, for example, I'm just looking at those names on the screen right now. Pegula, whose form since Bad Homburg is 2-4, so you can't rely on her either, despite her unbelievable pedigree here in New York and across the slams. You could name a single player. Emma Raducanu is on the screen right now. Could go out first round, could make the fourth round or quarterfinals. It really could. Does depend on that. It's only Aryna and Iga that I have that confidence with. Now, that doesn't mean Jasmine Paolini can't at least make the quarterfinals here, and it would not surprise me if she made the quarterfinals. But equally, it wouldn't surprise me if she went out first round. What do you think, Carson?
Yeah, Paolini doesn't have a fantastic history at the U.S. Open. It's been her weakest slam so far. Last year was her first time making it past the second round when she reached the fourth round. So, yeah, I don't think I realized this until I looked at her Grand Slam results last night. She's still only reached 2 quarterfinals of Grand Slams. And
yeah, this year, Carson, I did have a quick look to see if it was my mind playing tricks on me. But if we think back to this, her last Grand Slam results, I think there's maybe 2 fourth rounds. So including this US Open, I think there might be 2 fourth rounds, a third round, and a second round. So, but she's just got to the finals. That doesn't mean she can't make the quarters or the semis. And she's not the only one. It was just her. It's just players like her and Pegula in this, this next group after Iga and Aryna, if you like. Yeah, I think are vulnerable.
Yeah, I think I'd probably slot Rybakina ahead of her. as
Yeah,
far as
right
who I
now I
would
would too.
favor to make the quarterfinals. Yeah, this is like this bottom half of this quarter. I guess it could. I guess it could go chalk if you use. I don't know if you use that term, but it's like
No,
all.
what does it mean? Go crazy? Go chaotic?
Yeah,
Loads of seeds go out?
chalk is like all of the favorites win.
Oh, okay. It's the opposite. Okay.
But it could go absolutely crazy as well. Like, I mean, you look at matchups with, you got Raducanu, who she'll be favored in round one, and then her second round match, likely Veronika Kudermetova.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know that she's going to be scared of that necessarily, and then you get to the next round, like the seeded players from that other part of that section are Kessler and Paulini. I think Raducanu could beat either of them. I'm not picking her to get to that point, but I think it just illustrates like you could, I think, pull a handful of players from this section of the draw. Marketa Vondrousova is down here. It could open up, and there's like 4 or 5 players that could get to that other part of the quarterfinal match against likely Sabalenka or Tausen.
Mm-hmm.
I think those are the clear front 2 runners in that top half of this section. But the bottom half, like there's 4 or 5 pretty solid players that it wouldn't shock me if we saw one of them get to the weekend.
So actually, just even now, Sabalenka's run, I think Sabalenka's draw is tough in that, I think from, third round could be Layla. Now, I do think that, of course, Layla, losing early in, I think, both Canada and Cincinnati, she hasn't backed up that Washington title, former US Open finalist here, but she has got the game to frustrate Sabalenka. Now, Sabalenka is somebody that can get frustrated, and probably the best examples of that have been the US Open finals of 2023 and the French Open final of 2025 against the same opponent, Coco Gauff, someone who could just defend incredibly well and make Arena play that final ball. There were some asterisks, I guess, in the French Open with the win, but still, I don't think Leylah Fernandez would beat Arena Sabalenka, but it is just one to think about. And I think that may well happen because I think Leylah will overcome Rebecca Marino. Actually, Buskova, I think, will be a tough one for Leylah in round 2, and who knows from there onwards. And I think, did Buskova play Sabalenka at Wimbledon this year?
I thought about taking Buskova. She's still playing in Monterrey.
Is she?
I got suspended due to rain.
So I saw a lot of the rain. Yeah,
she's going. It's still very early on in that match, but she's going to have to play semifinal match, essentially the entirety of it today. And if she wins that, the entirety of the final today, and then fly to New York, like she can win the title, like be on a very good stretch of tennis. But I mean, Monterrey to New York, that's quite a long flight. So
it is. It's pretty far away. Yeah, I'm guessing 5 hours by plane.
It's 5-6 hours. I didn't look it up before, but just guessing. It's one of those things. She could come into the tournament on an absolute hot streak, and there's just another factor with travel and fatigue from potentially playing 2 matches in a day that just wipe you out a little bit. So she's a tough opponent. That would be an interesting match, I think, but okay, so just a little over 4 hours. That's not as bad.
But there's a time zone, and it's the furthest one away. If you think of Winston-Salem on the men's side as well, and you think of, I'm guessing Cleveland is closer.
Yeah, Cleveland's maybe a 1 hour flight.
Say again, Cleveland's what?
Maybe a 1 hour flight.
Right, yeah, exactly.
It's pretty close. So, we'll see what happens there. It's like an interesting spot in the draw for her, and also unfortunate in that there may be other factors that undermine her performance a little bit.
Indeed. But if she is, has got the energy, of course, she may well end up losing that semi-final. It's a really tough one for her. She's 2-2 with, I just saw her, Alexandrova. So I just make Alexandrova a slight favorite there. I haven't seen much of the action in Monterrey, but my thoughts ahead of that would be a slight favoritism towards Alexandrova. And yeah, Buskova did play Sabalenka, and it was a close affair, especially in the first set. I think she might have been serving for the first set, and the tiebreak was close as well. And once Arena just won that tiebreak, she just pulled away. And Arena actually had one of those statistically good days in that she had a very favorable winners to unforced errors ratio that day. I do remember that. But yeah, let's go with it. Let's get. I mean, actually, you said this is an interesting section, especially the bottom half. It's true. I mean, obviously Sabalenka, Paolini, Towson, Rybakina, they are the heavyweights here. But then in that next tier below, I've mentioned Layla already. You mentioned Veronika Kudermetova as well, who has, been in finals of 1000s on a hard court, for example, I think, or 500 or 1000 in Asia when she met, I think maybe Iga. But anyway, I'm going for a tangent. Her form is patchy over the last 12, 18 months, but still, she could beat Raducanu as well, by the way. Raducanu is somebody who could end up playing Rybakina in this section, and that will be, potentially a shootout, or Paolini as well, potentially a shootout for a meeting with maybe Arina Sabalenka. But tell me who are your quarterfinalists here. So the top seeds are Sabalenka and Paolini, but tell me the two players you expect to make the quarterfinals.
I think the players I expect would be Sabalenka and Rybakina, which is maybe a little bit of a boring pick. Not really an upset if we saw that happen. But Rybakina's been starting to play pretty well. Just had a decent run in Cincinnati. Sabalenka, she always does well at the U.S. Open. This has been her tournament. So in spite of the fact that Rybakina traditionally hasn't done that well at the U.S. Open, which is interesting. Note as well that we didn't even hit on, does she go out early? Because that changes everything here. But I think that Rybakina and Sabalenka will be the two players.
Yeah, that makes sense. And they're the two favorites I would suggest to get to the quarterfinals. However, I'm just going to write your quarterfinals down now, by the way. So you've got Sabalenka versus Rybakina. Yeah, I have Rybakina and Raducanu, for example. I think that'll be a very intriguing affair if that comes to the third round. Yep. Hi, Anthony, by the way, and congratulations on a newborn. So back here, and yet I'm going to be a bit controversial, and I'm going to go with Clara Towson to knock out Arina Sabalenka in round 4, and Rybakina to meet her in the quarterfinals. Now, you did well to highlight Rybakina's. This is the part of the season that Rybakina, she's obviously won Wimbledon. She's been in Australian Open final. She's been in, winning titles elsewhere down under as well in that part of the season. And yet this is the part of the year where it's sort of, for whatever reason, she's not delivered. And yet, think about it. She's lost the eventual champion in Washington. She's lost the eventual champion in Canada, and she's lost the eventual champion in Cincinnati. And think of the nature of those losses. I mean, the match against Layla, I think, is arguably one of the matches of the year. Just to remind me of that match with Washington, I think she was super close to winning. I'm not sure if she had a match point or not.
That was
it 7-6 in the third?
Yeah, I can't remember if she did have a match point, but
loads of breaks of serve, I think, in that match. So it was a real topsy-turvy affair that 51-49 and ends up going the way of, it was 7-6 in the third, in fact, it was 3 tie breaks, very unusually. So it was 6-7, 7-6, 7-6. So that tells you just how tight that was. And flip a coin and it goes the way of Rybakina. But on that occasion, she has lost a few of these this year, though. That is one thing. Think about the match at the French Open. She's up a set and a break on Iga. She has a smash, I think, on top of the net, and she misses it and ends up getting broken back. And then the match eventually slips away from her. And then there's this one as well. Then there's the Mboko match, by the way, in Canada, which I think was also super close. She just beaten Mboko, by the way, in Washington. And I remember looking at those two thinking, they might well meet, I think, at whatever stage it was. It might even have been pretty early on in the tournament. And then I was like, I was not sure because I thought she might get Rybakina cold. And also Rebecca this part of the year. But in the end, my last minute decision, because I was going to go for the upset in Washington, but my last minute decision was, you know what, I'm going to back Rebecca. I think she has been pretty consistent this year. It's been a bit under the radar because we expect a bit more from her, but she is winning most matches. So I did go for it. And that turned out to be the correct situation because she won in straight sets. But then they go and play each other a couple of weeks later in Canada, and a super, super tight affair in terms of that. It was another 7-6 in the third semi-final. But it ages well because Mboko takes the title. So, yeah. And then, of course, you think about Cincinnati. She's serving for the first set against Iga Swiatek. Now, that sounds familiar as well. She was exactly the same situation at the United Cup at the beginning of the year. Iga broke back, and that was the end of the match, pretty much. But she's, again, losing to the eventual champion. So there's some good omens, I would suggest, in terms of her recent form, despite long-term form in North America not always being that great. So I have Rebecca, and I have Clara Towson, yes, as her opponent. So we'll come back to these quarterfinals in a few moments. Of course, I want to move through the draw now and go down to the next section, which is the Jessica Pegula section in terms of her seeding. Mira Andreeva is the next seed, so that is obviously in terms of seedings, projected quarterfinals. What are you thinking about this particular section that I'm showing on the screen right now?
There's, I think, a few interesting names here. Mira Andreeva's here, who red hot at the beginning of the year. Has cooled off a little bit recently. We just talked about Victoria Mboko. She's got Krejcikova in round one, which is, I think, a very interesting match. Emma Navarro, semifinalist last year. She's in this section. Pavlyuchenkova, Yastremska, Samsonova's in here. There's like just a lot of names. Yelena Ostapenko. This feels like, to me, this felt like the most even section.
Yeah.
Like, there's a lot of ways this could play out. You could tell me a dozen different players make the quarterfinals, and I would believe you. Like, this one feels pretty wide open to me. You mentioned earlier, Jess's results lately have been a little bit underwhelming. Not very many wins since grass season started. And then, Andreeva's cooled off as well after winning a couple of 1000s early on in the spring. So it feels to me like there's a lot of room here for someone to maybe surprise us and make a run.
Yeah. Mira Andreeva has probably gone slightly under the radar in terms of her form tailing off. I don't think it's taken a nosedive quite like Jessica Pegula's has, for example. But I will add something else to Pegula. I remember saying around, I don't know when it was, maybe about 6 months ago, I don't think I've seen Pegula have a really good tournament since Indian Wells. Sorry, since the US Open. And I don't think she's reaching the same peaks in terms of her levels. She had won a couple of titles. She won, I think, one of the US clay court maybe tournaments. I'm not sure, but she's also won Bad Homburg, of course, not long ago. And she also won a hard court tournament, I think, on the eve of the Indian Wells, maybe. So she was winning tournaments, but those tournaments that she was winning, was in a part of the season when the Bad Homburg one is impressive, but certainly before that, I was saying I don't remember a really good tournament from her when it really matters. A big one, a 1000, a Grand Slam, one where I would expect her, like in Australia, for example, or whatever. And I just would see her, and she went out first round at Wimbledon. Actually, I did have her, I think, getting to the final at Wimbledon as my prediction, because that Bad Homburg win, I thought, okay, she's back now, and she'd won Berlin on the grass the year before, and remember getting to the quarterfinals at Wimbledon in 23 and was up a break, I think, on Von Drusov. Might have been a double break, I'm not sure, in the third. But I've just been a bit underwhelmed by Jessica in that 2 and 4 since Bad Homburg as well. But Mira Andreeva is another one who not quite as not quite as much of the nosedive as Pegula, but just showing some of her results on the screen right now. In Canada, she goes out in her second match, round of 32, to McCartney Kessler. Wimbledon was her previous. So she only played Cincinnati. She didn't play Canada, but as Sabalenka did the same, it's no big deal. Quarterfinals, and yet because of the unbelievable levels, probably another Grand Slam semi-final would have been par for the course. You'd expect her probably to beat Belinda Bencic. I remember watching that. It was a very, very close match in terms of 2 tie breaks there. Bad Homburg going out early to Noskova and a loss to Magdalena Fresh in Berlin. So in the end, the grass court season wasn't great. Yeah, Boisson, of course, that loss at the French Open in terms of ranking, of course, that's huge. It's also because if I scroll down just a couple more tournaments and we go back to Indian Wells winning the title, Dubai winning the title, and Australia going out to Sabalenka, 3 out of 4 tournaments. Sabalenka lost in Australia, no big deal. Even if it was in straights, and she got her revenge, of course, in Indian Wells for that one. So it was like, wow, we really are. Are we talking about a Grand Slam winning season? Maybe. Are we talking about a Grand Slam final season? Possibly, or even probably. And yet it hasn't quite. It's just gone slightly off the rails in the last few months, no?
Yeah, it's tailed off, and I still think that she can and will do everything that we thought that she could do after winning a couple of 1000s early on in the spring. Like, I don't think any less of her. I think that she's a very young player figuring out how to be competitive on the tour week in and week out, and that just requires a very high level of consistency. So long term, I'm not concerned. Short term, yes, it is a little bit of a concern that she hasn't been winning matches. As pointed out in the comments here, injured in that Kessler match.
Okay.
Which, that's obviously going to affect your play a little bit when you roll your ankle. So hopefully she can come back from that and be healthy. But yeah, I think this section, it's open for the taking. And Mira Andreeva absolutely could grab this and run away with it. And this could be the Slam final run that we were wondering about in the spring. So it's wide open. She could do it. Pegula traditionally plays well in New York, of course, made the finals last year. Yeah, there's just a few players that I think we'll look at the first few rounds of this section, and they're going to feel pretty good about their chances to make a deep run here.
Yeah. So, probably not. Yeah, it just feels a little bit underwhelming compared to the previous section in terms of, I think that, if Towson was in this section, I think she'd really like it. I think Sabalenka and Rybakina would also, be licking their lips, but so would players even maybe such as Raducanu going, you know what, I might make the quarters from this section. Which of the 2 players do you think will make the quarterfinal from this section?
I think up top, I'm gonna go away that with a player we didn't really talk about that much, but I think Samsonova is going to make a good run here. So I'm going to take Samsonova from the top half, and then bottom half, I'm going to take Mira Andreeva. If she's healthy, permitting, of course. But I think, it's tough because if you end up meeting like Ostapenko third round and then Ostapenko gets going on fire, then she could go a long ways. But yeah, I'm leaning Samsonova, and then Mira Andreeva. Emma Navarro, as Anthony's pointing out in chat, she's got a good path too. I mean, first couple of rounds for her should be fairly easy to get through, and then potentially like a match with Mboko, which she'll have the crowd behind her for that. So, and then that coming up would be the match with Andreeva, probably in that 4th round. So she's got a path here as well. Made the semifinals last year. Results have been a little bit down this year, but she's still a very good player.
Yep. For me, interesting. I'm just looking at the TNNS app, and I think they've got a mistake because they have Madison Keys in this section, but here we have Mira Andreeva, which is very interesting. Little glitch on their app. Yeah, I will go with Samsonova as well. Interesting. I was just checking some of my picks from last night when I did a video. I have Samsonova as well making the quarters, and from that section, I think, listen, it's pretty close. Navarro hasn't quite got the consistency right now that she probably had a year ago. That might be suggesting a pick for her. I'm going to go with Mboko. Yeah. Mboko to make the quarterfinal. So it's going to be a real sort of out there quarterfinal with Mboko playing Samsonova in the quarterfinal, the 17 and 22 seeds. Yeah, I think I already had some faith in Mboko even before that title win in Canada. She then doesn't play Cincinnati. Really interesting decision that. Very maybe mature decision, you could argue. Other people here, Krejcikova could beat Mboko in the first round, by the way. That's the risk with choosing Mboko, by the way. It's not beyond the realms of possibility that Krejcikova wins that, especially in a three-set match, for example, and her experience. Big stage. I've seen youngsters who go on to have amazing careers, but maybe the first sort of time you watch them in a slam, it sort of doesn't quite go the way you expect, and they maybe freeze on the big stage. Ostapenko, of course, she can easily have 4 amazing matches. Doesn't matter who's on the other side of the net. And, matches against Wong and then potentially Townsend or Rusic in the second round won't scare her too much. And it would be a fascinating matchup if we get Ostapenko against Mira Andreeva, given the contrast of styles there. That would be a popcorn affair, in my opinion. But yeah, I'm going to go with Mboko. So just remind me, who are your 2 picks from this section?
Samsonova and Andreeva were my 2.
Andreeva, yeah. Okay. And I'm going for Samsonova as well. It's quite a nice draw for Samsonova. I think it's a nice draw for a lot of players. If you're in this section, you might be looking at it going, I can get to the 4th round of the quarters. And I'm going for Samsonova and Mboko. Okay. So next section of the draw. The aforementioned Madison Keys. Of course, she was on a real run at the beginning of the year. I don't know how many matches it was she was unbeaten. I'm going to guess about 15 or so as she went into the semi-finals in Indian Wells, and that was a match for her to forget against Aryna Sabalenka. But it almost felt like that was just the end of her energy, her determination, her desperation to hold on to that unbeaten run. I mean, she'd been through a few. I think she'd saved some match points in Indian Wells against Elise Mertens, for example. I think it was a real struggle for her to get through, and she was hanging on to that unbeaten record. And as is often the case, those unbeaten records, when they go with a spectacular style. Yeah, she's not quite got back on the horse since then, but you just really can't get to those levels that she was showing over those first few months of the season. But this is her section, along with Coco Gauff will be the projected quarterfinals. What are your thoughts on this section?
To me, this section feels like it has the most variance in between the seeded players and the unseeded players. Like, this is the one that it feels like every seed could get some wins here. I might just pick every favorite in this section. Yeah, Keys has tailed off a little bit. Kostyuk-Bolter is an interesting first-round match, if for no other reason than which version of Marta Kostyuk are we going to get. Like, that probably has a huge effect on that match. I think Linda Noskova is going to feel pretty decent about her chances in the top half of this section of the draw. Yeah, Keys has fallen off a little bit. Kostyuk, not incredibly consistent. The other seed up there is Carolina Muhova, who hasn't been playing super consistently, but of course has made semifinals here last year and the year before that. So there's really good history for her at this tournament. It just hasn't been showing it in many other places consistently recently. So I think Linda Noskova has a really good shot at that top half. And then the bottom half, of course, you have like Daria Kazatkina there, Caroline Garcia, who's likely playing her final Grand Slam. For her to get a wild card here.
Mm-hmm.
And then you've got Naomi Osaka, her first time playing since Canada, made the finals there, lost in the match to Mboko, and then pulled out of Cincinnati. Probably a smart decision there. Magdalena Freck is here. Peyton Stearns, and Donna Vekic, two players that have really been struggling for any run of like quality wins at all. And then Coco Gauff there, facing Tomljanovic in round one. And yeah, Coco Gauff, who knows what version of her we get. I think I said earlier on, like, she could win this tournament, and it wouldn't shock me if she went out in the first couple of rounds either.
So, who you got in the quarterfinal? Oh, just before I just say what yours and mine are, actually. I do want to just elaborate on a couple of things. Yeah, Mukova, that's, I think she does beat Venus. I also think that she's a very different opponent compared to Peyton Stearns, who she had in Washington, Venus, that is. And yeah, I was very, very surprised by that performance from both sides of the net. I was shocked at Venus's level and also surprised at Peyton Stearns's. And it's really left me mentally scarred regarding Peyton, actually, and I'm just wondering whether what kind of player we're going to get. It really has had that kind of effect. It certainly had an effect on me anyway in the immediate term, and I don't have her doing big things in New York, albeit that she probably does get through that first round. But yeah, Gauff, I think Gauff Tomljanovic could be 1-1. Or it could be a scenario where Gauff is really, having to work hard like she did in round one. The year she won the title, I think, in round one, she had a match with Laura Siegmund, which was really tough for her to come through, and she did come through it. But she certainly lost the first set against Laura, and I'm not. The other two were not comfortable either. Naomi Osaka, I think, is a really important name to mention in this section because, yeah, she's a potential quarterfinalist. I do think so. From this group of players, another one that you like, Mboko, also having got to the final in Cincinnati, decided not to play Canada. From this bunch of players, Kazatkina, maybe Siniakova, definitely Naomi Osaka, Coco Gauff. 6 months ago, maybe Peyton Stearns, but less so right now. Any one of those players, could be making the quarterfinal. I'm going with Coco Gauff. And in the top half of this section, I'm going with the seed, which is Madison Keys. I think it's a pretty nice section for Madison. Noskova or Mukova will probably be her fourth round opponent. That would be my guess from that group. Galfi's an interesting one. I saw Galfi. I've seen Galfi up close a few times this year. I love her game. I love the aggressive style. She took a set off at Anisimova at Wimbledon. And her game sort of suits the grass, I think, quite well. She beat Udvardi in the final round of qualifying. So, yeah, I mean, at some point in Galfi's career, there is a run at a slam, and it could be here in New York, especially with this draw. But it also could be over, and I think it will be over in round one against Noskova. But that's a 60-40 for me. It's not a definite. But, yeah, one of the two. By the way, just one more thing on Mukova. I think I say it every few months because it's an interesting gem. Mukova, of course, played Coco Gauff in the semi-finals in 2023 and Jessa Pegula in 2024. On both occasions, she was frustrated. On both occasions, if she had won, she would have played Arina Sabalenka in the final. And particularly in 2024, the Sabalenka team definitely wanted to face Jessica Pegula, not Karolina Mukova in that US Open final. They were very optimistic about their chances against Pegula and a lot less so against Karolina Mukova, which is a real compliment to Karolina, but also an acknowledgement of her game and how it is an interesting matchup for pretty much anyone on the tour. Anyway, I'm going for Keys and Gauff. Sorry, who are you going for from this section?
Yeah, move of a Pegula match last year was so interesting because, first that was an absolute disaster from Jess. 6-love, 6-1, but she played I don't know if I've ever seen her play worse than that, and then somehow like came all the way back to win that one. I'm gonna go for Linda Noskova.
Ooh.
I think that, I just think her firepower, consistent firepower relative to the other players in this half right now, is looking really good, and that's really interesting to me. And then I'm gonna go with Coco Gauff. Not because I necessarily feel like there's a better than 50% chance then she will be there. To me, it's just more likely than anyone else that she will get to that stage at the tournament. I don't feel particularly comfortable about it. And she can prove me wrong and go win the tournament. But like if someone like Naomi Osaka came out of this, if Magdalena Freck had a decent run here, like that wouldn't surprise me at all, really.
Yeah, I know what you mean with Coco, and I know what you mean with these feelings going into tournaments. I have felt that about many players in the past. You know, you pre-draw, I'll be like, oh, I don't think this player's going to have a good US Open. Then when I do my picks, when the draw comes around, I've suddenly got them in the semifinals. And I'm like, how does that work? Because I don't really think they're going to have a good US Open, and yet I've got them in the... What that means is that's when you realize someone's got a good draw. You know, when you go into a tournament and you don't feel good about someone's chances, you know, it might be... I remember a couple of times feeling it about Pegula, for example, and yet suddenly she was getting to my semifinals, and I was like, she's got a nice draw. I'm just going to get the door. Don't worry, it's a friend of mine. But anyway, he's on time. It's me who's late. Just remind me of your quarterfinal picks, and why not Naomi Osaka, by the way? That's one question.
So I have Noskova and Gauff in this section. Naomi Osaka, why not her? It's a good question. She just made the final of A1000. So she's been playing some decent tennis recently. It overall has been a good year for her. I feel like the draw isn't particularly great for her. She should win the first round match against Gibson. Second round, probably Peyton Stearns. I think she'll be favored in that, but Stearns is exactly the type of player that can beat Naomi Osaka. She can turn it into just a fight along the baseline and then just grind out the match. And then you've got Gauff after that. She's probably my second favorite out of this bottom section. It, to me, just doesn't look like a good draw for her. Like even Peyton Stearns with a lack of form.
Siniakova. I
as well.
think she lost to Siniakova recently. I'm not sure, but anyway.
I think she did. Yeah, there's just a lot of players in this section that play exactly the way that you would want to play if you were building a game to beat Naomi Osaka.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right. Let's go to the final section of the draw, which is, of course, the Iga Swiatek section. Anisimova, of course, is a familiar face for both Iga and for many of us in terms of her appearance in the Wimbledon final. Let's have a quick look at this one. Sofia Kenin, of course, a Grand Slam winner on a hard court in Australia. Svitolina stands out. I think if she was in any kind of form, maybe Hadad would too, but her form is wretched at the moment. Boisson, interesting to see her there, of course, the French Open semi-finalist. I mean, actually, I'm going to just go straight for it. I've got Iga Swiatek against Anisimova from this section.
I think there's a few other interesting names here. Alexandrova and Dinah Schneider are both in this section. Both of them are still playing Monterrey. So everything I said about Puskova earlier applies to them as well, with long flight and short turnaround before they play their matches. Sonia Kartel is a really interesting name to me in this section. She has Bia Haddad Maia in round one.
Yeah.
I think she's just straight up going to win that match. And then I think she's going to get to the third round against Svitolina, which, I mean, that could be really interesting. But if there's a player that's tempting me to pick an unseeded player to get to the fourth round here, it's definitely Cartel. But I think Anna Samova's coming out of this top half of the section. Svitolina.
I mean, it's the seeds for me. It's her or Svitolina, and I have gone for Anna Samova, but yeah.
Yeah, Sofia Kenin it would surprise me a little bit. I think she's going to play well, but Ashlyn Kruger round 1, probably Danielle Collins in round 2, Anna Samova in round 3. That's just a lot of players who hit the ball really big, which is something that Kenin struggles with a little bit more right now. So, my not really considering her for this section to make the quarterfinals. It's less of a reflection on her and more of a reflection of this is not a great draw for her. All right, the bottom half of this section, I mean, I think it's got to be Iga Swiatek.
Definitely, yeah. She's got a nice draw. First time in a long time, I feel like, going into a slam, even when she was amazing at Roland Garros or, playing really well elsewhere. But it's the first time in a long time where I'm like, oh, she's fine for the first week.
Alexandrova and Snyder will have played a lot of tennis by that point, as they would meet in the fourth round.
Alexandrova will be a fourth round, and that's when it gets interesting. But the first 3 rounds...
Kalinskaya could be interesting. It looks like she's maybe starting to round into form a little bit, which is great to see, but I'm not sure she's going to push Iga too much.
All right, so who's your quarterfinal here?
Anna Samova and Swiatek.
Same as me. So let's hone in on our quarterfinals here that we can see. I'm going to share for you on the screen. Quite a few differences here. We do both have Swiatek against Anna Samova, but you have Noskova, I have Keys. We both have Samsonova, but I have Mboko and you have Mira Andreeva, and I've gone for Towson over Sabalenka. Right, let's go for it. Who you got winning between Sabalenka and Rybakina? That's probably the most interesting of the, at least on paper, those 4 quarterfinals.
Yeah, I do think you switched our Samsonova picks. I have
really?
Andreeva.
Oh, yes, I have. You're right. Thank you for correcting me on that one. Yeah. Good.
But I think other than that, everything else looks right. Sorry, which one did you ask about first?
Yeah, Sabalenka Rybakina.
Sabalenka Rybakina. And there are 2 very differing thoughts in this match, which is that it's Sabalenka. She's the number 1 player in the world. And I think clearly the best and most consistent player in the world right now. And Rybakina just absolutely smoked her in Cincinnati.
Yeah.
I'm going to lean Sabalenka. But Rybakina, I mean, I think that she can absolutely win the match for sure. But I think we're in a place where Sabalenka likes to play. Rybakina hasn't liked playing here as much. Feel like Sabalenka is more likely to have the crowd behind her as well, which could play a part in this. Just having that extra push of energy behind her could be really interesting.
About 2/3 of their matches go 3 sets, so it's a bit better than I thought. But I just remember a few comfortable wins. Rybakina in Beijing at 7-5, 6-2. There was also a Brisbane final. I remember that one in my head as well. 6-love, 6-3. So in fact, 3 of Rybakina's 5 wins have been super, super comfortable, which is kind of unusual against Sabalenka. But so that is an intriguing one. Of course, I don't have that matchup, but you are going to lean Sabalenka. I've got Towson Rybakina, and I'm leaning Rybakina in that one. And she's never really done it in New York before, but now's the time, Elena. I like the consistency she's showing. I think her draw until the 4th round is pretty good as well, because I think she I include when I was thinking of Paolini and Pegula, I also include Rebecca. She could be a Grand Slam finalist in New York, but she could also go out early because that's how competitive, particularly the top sort of 20 or 30 players are on the women's tour right now. But I have got Rebecca edging Towson. I'm going to go for Mboko over Samsonova in the slightly more random quarterfinal choice. What about you? You've got Mira Andreeva against Samsonova.
I'm going to go with Mira Andreeva. Yeah, this is one of those situations for me where it's like I don't necessarily expect someone to have a great tournament going in, and then I've got them making a pretty deep run here. Like, I don't feel great about Mira Andreeva right now, but here we go. Fairly deep into the tournament. So, yeah, taking Andreeva. Just think that she's just a little more consistent than Samsonova. Mm-hmm. If Samsonova is playing lights out for 2 sets, she can definitely win this. But is she going to be able to do that for 2 sets against someone like Andreeva who defends really well?
All right. Noskova versus Goff. Who you got?
I'm going to take Noskova. Okay.
I remember Mert pre-Wimbledon was very big on Noskova's chances, and I think she had to meet. Did she have to play Sabalenka at some point? She had to play somebody big at some point, and it was like, this is the match, and if she wins this, she might go maybe even all the way. But I think it was a really tough matchup for her, maybe in the 4th round or something like that. And that's exactly how it turned out. And she got to that match, she just couldn't quite get over the line. Okay, you're going to go Noskova over Goff. I think you've explained a lot, certainly regarding Goff's struggles at the moment. I'm going to go with Goff over Keys. I am not quite as down on Coco. I know I listen to everything you say and I hear it. I'm probably just thinking she's still going to be okay. It's New York. It's a Grand Slam. It's the final she's been in before. Actually, with the exception of Wimbledon, her Grand, she can be not in the best form, but she generally goes deep at slams these days, Wimbledon aside. So, yeah, I'm going to go with Goff to get to the semis. And I'm going for Swiatek again. I think Anisimova will win some games, but I think Swiatek is making the semis. You?
I'm taking another upset here.
Oh, the second time in a row you've backed Anisimova, by the way. We know how it went at Wimbledon.
Yeah. Yeah, I think, because I picked her to beat Andreeva in Miami as well, I believe. So, 1-1 in these predictions with Anisimova. I think she's going to be absolutely locked in for this match. I don't see a world in which she comes out flat against Iga. And if she's on and gets the crowd into it early, she might just ride that to victory.
Wow, a Samsonova-Noskova semi-final and a Sabalenka-Mira Andreeva semi-final. I think that's very intriguing. I've got Rebecca against Mboko, and I've got Swiatek against Anisimova, and I have a Rebecca-Swiatek final. I don't even think I need to elaborate too much on that, especially the Swiatek Anisimova one. I think Anisimova will win some games, maybe even a set, but I think Igor will emerge the winner. You have who's getting to your final?
I've got Sabalenka beating Andreeva, and then I'm going to take Anisimova over Noskova.
Another Grand Slam final. I was worried after that Wimbledon final that she'd ever get to a Slam final again. And, well, you have her back a couple of months later in New York. So my champion, by the way, is Iga Swiatek. I think that the form that she's in, if we think about it now, back a little bit, I was concerned about Iga. I think in my projected end of year rankings, I think this is almost a year ago I made this. I had her like 5th or something. I thought she might just have an off season. She might not win the French. She had a lot of points to defend at various parts of the season. And and I didn't see her winning Wimbledon for sure. So I did see her. And then it was also the post sort of drug test and the scrutiny. And I just thought that she might react differently to that, to someone like Jannik Sinner. So I just thought I could see a dip from her this year. And until Wimbledon, it seemed to be the dip that I'd anticipated. But now she's the best player in the world right now. If we just look at the last sort of 2 or 3 months, final in Bad Homburg, even if we look at Bad Homburg as well, final in Bad Homburg, wins Wimbledon. Yes, she loses to Clara Towson in Cincinnati. Sorry, in Canada. That's no shame in that. and then she wins Cincinnati and wins it pretty comfortably as well. I think don't think she dropped a set, did she? And also, who did she beat en route? She beat Rebecca. And I know Rebecca was serving for the first set like she was at the United Cup, but it just felt like that was always Iga's to win. And so, yeah, I have Iga Swiatek winning the US Open. And you?
I feel like I can't. Maybe pulling a third upset in a row might be a little too much. So I'm going to take a Sabalenka to win the US Open again.
Nice. Yeah, I don't despite me having her go out to Towson in the fourth round. It's a tough run for her, by the way. Whether she plays, Rebecca. So Towson, Rebecca, and then I think you have Mira Andreeva in the semis, and then Anisimova in the final. Arguably, it gets a bit easier actually in terms of that potential path. But of course, it could also be Iga as well at some point as well. So it's a tough draw, I think, for her. And I even think, maybe Leylah Fernandez in round 3. But I just have a feeling that this might be the slam when she goes out by her standards early. By most people's standards, fourth round is a great run, But I think that'll be her earliest slam exit for a few years. Should that materialize, I think she's been, quarterfinals or further. I think every slam, I'm going to go back to maybe Wimbledon 2022. Let me just have a quick look. Sabalenka.
I don't even remember the last time she didn't.
So I know she got to the semis in US Open 2022. I can even just off the top of my head. I know US Open semifinals 22, 23 wins Australia, gets the semis in and loses to Mukova at the French Open in 23. Wimbledon 23, she got to the semis, lost to Jabeur. US Open 23, she gets the final of US Open, loses to Coco Gauff. Australia 24, she wins it. French Open 24, she gets the quarterfinals, loses to Mira Andreeva. By the way, a lot of these losses as well are super, super close. And, a breakup, for example, Andreeva was a 3-setter, but she was sick. Wimbledon 24, she doesn't play because of a shoulder injury she picked up in Berlin. She wins the US Open. Australian Open 25, she's in the final. French Open, she's in the final in 25, and then obviously semi-final loss to Anisimova. So I think it's Wimbledon 2022. Bad. Yes, she was bad, so didn't even play. So maybe we need French Open 2022. I'm pretty sure she doesn't go deep there. The French Open 2022. I don't remember her exit. Oh, it's Camilla Giorgi. Wow, how about that in the third round? So that is well over 3 years since she lost as early as the fourth round or before. But there we go. All right. Any final words? Maybe something to look forward to in Cleveland or Monterrey or any other bigger picture stuff regarding the US Open?
Yeah, I got a couple of finals, Jay. Monterrey and Cleveland. Semifinals still to be played in Monterrey as well. So I'm really looking forward to this Sunday start with the US Open, though. I think there's going to be some.
Just absolute no-brainer for me, Carsten.
It just makes so much sense, and I mean, I think eventually we'll probably have a Saturday start.
Might do. The problem with the only thing is with that, it just then infringes on the other tournaments that take place on it. Makes it a bit tricky.
It does, and I think eventually they might just not care about that.
You might be. You might be right. We saw how unilaterally the French Open was during COVID. I think within weeks of COVID, sort of a big thing, and then Wimbledon obviously getting cancelled. And they were like, we'll take this week in October.
Yep. I think eventually that may happen, but this Sunday start, absolute no-brainer. And I think they've done a pretty good job of, putting some really good players in the schedule on the big show courts early on in the tournament. So you've got tickets to that. There's going to be some good matches, men's and women's side. Obviously, this is WTA Weekly, so we haven't really talked about the men at all. But
I mentioned Lloyd Harris at the beginning and Jamie Fardier. It's fine.
Yeah, I mean, we've got. There's going to be some really good matchups, I think.
Learn a team, Novak Djokovic. That's what it's all about for me on the men's side for the first round, at least. All right, big thanks, Carsten, for joining me today. Just over the hour mark, as we often are. And we'll catch up with you at various stages throughout the US Open. I know you're busy the next day or two, but it'd be good to hear from you again very soon. And make sure you give Carsten a follow on the socials. What's your X tag, by the way?
CarstenX01.
There you go. There we go. Nice. I talk about tennis and I love animals. Well, that's a perfect combo, I think, for pretty much everybody here. We do occasionally have animals on the stream. Today we just have 2 humans, but we've had cats, dogs, and even a squirrel emerged at one point. Yeah, we had a squirrel run into the window, I think, of Isabel's house. So that occurred. We probably had other animals that I can't recall off the top of my head, but yeah, definitely. All right, big thanks, Carson, once again, and everybody else. You know the drill. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you hit that like button. Don't forget to subscribe and click that notification bell so you don't miss out on all things tennis.